This is the Horror Scouts podcast, and we are about to review Skinamarink. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the podcast. My name is Mike, and I am joined, as always, by my co-hosts and co-troop leaders, Brian.
Hello.
And Nick.
Hey.
And we're just thanks for checking out the show. And just a reminder that we have an audio and video version of the show now. So if you want to watch us on YouTube, we're at youtube.com/@horrorscouts, or you can just listen to us on your favorite podcast service. And the last little reminder, all of our reviews here are full of spoilers. So if you don't want Skinamarink ruined, go watch the movie and then come on back. Hey guys.
How's it going?
Yeah, we're here again.
Yeah.
Look at us
keeping on schedule. It's
I know, right?
It's weird. We did such a long gap without recording that I keep looking at my calendar and like, oh shit, I gotta watch a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is cool though. Like, yeah. I'm keeping I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes, but Paula and I are keeping track of every movie and show that we watched this year because we want to do a New Year's Eve thing where we just like kind of hang around and rank stuff from the year. So all the things with the little M next to it, meaning only Mike watched this, is stacking up pretty quick.
Nice.
So
have you signed up for Letterboxd?
Yes.
Okay. That I started doing that this year too. And
yes. Oh, wait a minute. No, I take that back. I'm a big fat liar. No, I started using Nick, what is it?
Just Watch?
Just Watch. That's what I started using. So that's to remind me of what I need to watch, but I don't have anything that keeps track of what I've watched.
Well, that's what Letterboxd could do, because you make watch lists and stuff in there, and it actually, I think, uses Just Watch if you pay for the premium version or whatever it is, so you can look up where to watch things. But it has all the movies, and you can mark what you have watched, and it keeps record of it and when you watched it, and you can give it ratings. But it's also can be social if you want, so you can see other people's reviews and like and follow and stuff.
Cool.
I started using that this year to keep track of what I watched, and to use it to keep myself to watch more of these movies I'm buying and stop lagging so far behind. Mm-hmm. And I've watched a lot of movies this year so far. Since the year has started, I'm up to 65 movies.
Wow.
That's without counting this movie, because I watched it today and didn't log it yet.
If I've watched 10 movies this year, I think that would be an exaggeration.
Yeah. It's for reference, we're recording February 9th.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So some of them I've watched with Mallory, where we got back into doing Movie Mondays, and there was the first weekend of the year I had no plans, or maybe it was the first long weekend, and I watched movies all weekend. I sat on my couch and binged watch movies all weekend, and it's going to change come summer and whatever. But I saw a few people I follow on Instagram last year try to do a movie a day. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I should try that. I have plenty of movies on not even counting rewatches. I have plenty of movies on my shelves that I need to watch. So I was like, okay, if I double up now, triple up now, when the summer comes, or like when I go on vacation later this year and I'm not watching movies, I can compensate. So yeah, that's become my new activity. Well, it's not that new. More regular activity.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, but it doesn't do TV shows, which, as you two know, is not that big of a deal for me.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
The fact that I'm watching The Last of Us is like a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I think Nick and I are counting that a big win, a big gotcha.
Yeah, seriously.
But it helps because I'm watching with my wife, and I tell her, it pushes me to watch it more, because otherwise I go, I'll watch a movie instead. Mm-hmm. But now since we're both doing it, it's a separate activity. So cool. Yeah, it's a cool app, and you can find all the movies. It has infos linked to IMDb, whatever. So something to think about for your movie tracking needs.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I'll definitely check that out. And is my eye like all red? The tissue is not because I'm getting emotional about this, but all of a sudden my eyes started tearing. Whew.
Cool.
Just thinking about this review coming up. Oh my god!
It brings a tear to your eye.
With the vapors. So one quick thing. Well, I don't know if Nick has anything he wants to bring up, but for me, quick thing before we jump in is so the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movie is coming out on February 15th as like one of those Fathom events, like this one day thing at the theater. And so someone on our Discord said he snagged his tickets for it, so which is very cool. And I'm like, so I checked my theater, my local theater's a Showcase, and there's one showing and it's at 7 p.m. I get out of work at 6:30 and I'm like, do I want to get tickets for this to rush over there and then like eat quote unquote dinner, like whatever I can fucking scrounge up or whatever in the theater? Is it worth it? Or no?
How far is the theater?
It's about, I don't know, 10-15 minutes.
Because you have a good 10-15 minutes of trailers and commercials and stuff before the movie. So
True.
you really have a little bit longer.
True.
Is it still worth it? Probably not. I want to know how it landed a Fathom event in the first fucking place.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they
I'm sure you
spent
guys saw
$12 on it, but
that article I shared on our Discord of the director saying he wants to make a full like connected universe of like public domain fairy tale murder massacre
I did
bullshit.
not see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got plans for like a whole twisted world of public domain shit.
Yeah, I forgot what he said he's doing next. The fans want Bambi, apparently.
Yeah.
But
right.
I forget what his next thing is.
I only want him to do that. Look, I like bad movies. However, there's a threshold, as discussed last week, inadvertently. Something tells me Blood and Honey is not going to be within said threshold as much as I'm going to watch it and will want to enjoy it. So unless he gets more money to make this murder fairy tale world, I'm not sure we need that from him. No offense.
We'll see. We'll see how much it breaks in.
Get money and do American Mickey's Alice. Murder fairy tales where a story and characters are already written, and you could probably get money to make that.
Yeah, that's true.
Then make Bambi and whoever after that.
Oh, Disney's going to be pissed. They can't do anything about it.
Well, it's funny. I thought I had read, and I can go verify this after we record that. So obviously Winnie the Pooh wasn't Disney's to start with.
Right.
So Disney still has the trademark or the copyright on the red t-shirt Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
But like shirtless and other Winnie the Pooh, they don't.
Yeah.
If I recall, he's wearing a big red t-shirt in this movie that he's making. So I'm wondering how that happened. But maybe that's not the only detail, I guess.
I just rewatched the trailer today. I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was like a plaid shirt or something.
I guess they could change the shirt. That's it's being a little risky with Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because so they both Pooh and Piglet in this movie wear masks, but the Piglet just looks like a boar,
Right.
But Winnie the Pooh, it's not just a brown bear mask. It kind of looks like the yellow Pooh that we're used to.
Yeah, we got Cocaine Bear covering that later this month.
Yeah, right. Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else.
Nope.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's jump into our review of Skinamarink. A little bit of info about it before we discuss what we thought. This one was written and directed by Kyle Edward Ball. I believe this is his first feature-length film.
Mm-hmm.
It stars Lucas Paul as Little Kevin, Dolly Rose Tetrol, I'm assuming it's French, who plays Little Kaylee. Ross Paul is the dad, and I'm assuming Lucas's real father, and Jamie Hill, who plays Mom. And very short synopsis His two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing, and all the windows and doors in their home have vanished. So first order of business for the three of us. Yay, nay, or just okay?
Nay.
Okay.
Fuck this movie so hard, dude.
So it's a nay for Nick. It's a nay for me with the caveat of I understand that this just isn't for me. I get why some people would enjoy this, but I didn't.
Go.
I have that caveat too, but not quite. I'll explain later. I have some of that caveat, but I'm also kind of like going with what I'm sure Nick was going to say.
Yeah, I have no caveats. Fuck this movie. This is not a movie. Movies have plot and dialogue and direction, and this has none of that.
Yeah, this is more of an art project.
I would believe it if you told me this was the control test to see if people would rather literally watch paint dry on walls or be tempted to pull out their phones. Because this was like a torture test for an hour and 40 minutes.
This should have been a 40-minute short film.
That's generous.
So, because I believe... So, I agree with you. I literally halfway through the movie, because I checked the time at that point, it happened to be that point, and I was like, oh my fucking God, are you kidding me? And at some point, I yelled at my screen, do something.
Right. Yeah.
But I do believe that Ball knows what this movie is about and it has a purpose. And I've read some of the fan theories afterwards, which are various degrees of plausible.
Okay.
And we will talk about that, but I'm not one that can sit there and extract that, or at least from this movie, it was not obvious at all. And I felt like had I known what this was about even more vaguely going into it, I might have appreciated it. I'm not going to say I'd like it because it was extremely slow and weird perspectives for no fucking reason, whatever. But to know what was going on, like, have a clue. There wasn't enough bits of substance to piece together this was going somewhere. Like,
I'm not sure it did. Like, I truly do not understand the point of this movie or what any hint of a plot could be. I read that article you sent us. That is nothing and bullshit extrapolated by somebody who's trying to make this have some sort of legs. Like, just watching it all the way through, I could not suss out anything that resembled plot or any sort of connective tissue from moment to moment, besides they really liked to look at door casings. That's all I got from this movie.
Right. So the direction and cinematography, if you want to call it that, is not necessarily explained by some of these theories. So you find in the beginning of the movie, so the kids do wake up, they find their father's gone. Before that happens, something happens to Kevin. Mm-hmm. It seems like he falls down the stairs. And then parent, which we find is dad, wakes up, and then you hear a car motor, car engine. So you assume he's taking him to the ER.
Yeah.
And he comes back and calls someone, presumably mom, who, again, you can guess they're divorced or something happened, because later in the movie, maybe it's Kaylee says, I don't want to talk about mom. So there's something there.
Yeah.
And the father says on the phone that, he fell, hurt his head. It wasn't that bad. He didn't even need stitches. And from that point on is when shit gets weirder. And then you start seeing even worse angles, and the doors and windows start disappearing. And to say the movie devolves further is hard. It's a strong word because it's starting at a very devolved point. Mm-hmm. But it does, in its slow, meandering, I'm not quite sure what's happening way, things do get even more weird and worse. So there's a theory that all of this is that Kevin actually fell into a coma after the accident. Like, he had a concussion, he went to bed, fell into a coma, and what you're seeing is his nightmarish dream state as he goes further and further into the coma. And when in the end of the movie, when they say, oh, the creepy face from shows up from the pixelization and says you can sleep, go to sleep now, is him dying. And there's things happen in there like fading implications to fading memories and things like that. I'm not going to say buy it all. There's a slight possibility of that.
Yeah,
but
there's
it
a
is
difference
definitely
between...
contrived because nobody actually knows what this is about. And that's so like it's contrived. But I think, again, I'm not going to say I would have liked the movie knowing that going into it.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been slightly less painful.
Yeah, there's a big difference between like an open-ended, kind of like hanging unresolved end of a movie and I'm just going to let you guess the entire time what you think this is about. Is a kid in a coma? I don't know. Is it all just a dream? We don't know. Did dad kill mom? Who fucking knows? Are the doors and windows missing? Some of them. Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Would you have written that synopsis you read at the beginning of this movie? Yeah. Is that what you would describe this plot as? Kids wake up in the middle of the night, find dad is gone, and all the doors and windows are missing? Because they're not.
I mean, that's not a plot either.
It's not a plot at all. And also, the doors and windows aren't all missing. There's lots of doors in this house. Some of them are, sometimes. But it would be just as concise to say, Legos move. Yeah. That's it. That's the whole plot. Yeah. Legos move.
I think it's supposed to be the doors on the outside outside of the house are missing.
Right. I saw like an expanded version writing that somewhere where it says the kids are trapped in the house. They never show that. There's no indication that the kids are trapped in this house. They never try to leave. Like
they never panic.
Right.
Right. Like, this is where the whole night. So the other theory is that it's a living nightmare, right? Like I can go on more something I read about that, how that can possibly work. But again, if either scenario is true, that would lead to why they don't panic. Why the fuck? So they're supposedly 4 and 6. I read in one of the articles. Mm-hmm. I think Kevin was the older one, but isn't it Kaylee that goes down to the basement when hearing the creepy voice?
Yeah,
what 4-year-old would fucking do that?
Yeah, I think Kaylee actually might be
Kaylee's the
older one. I was so confused. Okay. The movie started, I thought it was 2 boys. Then I realized it was a boy and a girl. But then I had the ages wrong. I'm like, they don't give you enough of anything
because they never show you either of them. Yeah. You see the back of their heads sometimes. They never you never see a mouth move to say anything, and the majority of the dialogue in this movie is mumbled incoherently or not actually audible at all. They just put text on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when they showed Kaylee's face, like the one of 2 jump scares in the movie, and the first jump scare happens halfway through because I paused halfway through as well. And, her eyes and her mouth are missing. I thought it was mom.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
You find out later that it was Kaylee when Kevin's talking to whatever. Now, there's also the whole point of nightmare, coma nightmare, actual nightmare, whatever. There seems to be an entity in the house. Mm-hmm. Seems to be. Who fucking knows? But it's that Kevin's discussion with said entity that reveals that, that was Kaylee you saw with no eyes and mouth. But you're right. You had no basis for comparison. Right. Like what that thing was or where it came from. And even the whole perspectives of looking at door moldings and ceilings and stuff, like, first of all, too many lingering shots of any of that. I understand wanting to create some kind of weird atmosphere. You cut all those scenes in half, we gain 20 minutes back easily.
Yeah.
But the perspectives don't make, I understand a few weird perspectives to make it off-putting, but there are some shots, some sequences you are clearly from one of the kids' perspectives. The camera is moving at their probable eye level. You have the flashlight shining. But when you're not looking through them, you're on the floor. Like, you actually go lower than their perspective, which makes no sense.
Yep. I had that, that was my main issue was actually, I made a couple notes for this movie. You guys.
Shit.
We've covered the majority of them already. It's all good. But my main one is what the fuck is the POV of this movie? Because so much of the time you're spent seeing it through Kevin's eyes, you think, but then like that whole scene in the bedroom where you're definitely seeing it through his eyes, and he goes in and sees dad sitting there, and then he looks under the bed and comes back up and looks over at mom, and then mom says, close your eyes, and he does, and it goes black, and then he opens his eyes and then turns back to the door, and you get that like kind of jump scare of something flashing through the door frame. It zooms in slowly first before it does that. So this kid has like some sort of like telephoto eyeball adjustment going on here, because you're in his head up until then, and it's just like, now he can zoom now. Camera's not tracking, it is not moving, but we zoom. What? No. Also, what was the jump scare? What was that? That thing that came through the door? It was nothing. I rewound and watched it 6 times, and I cannot tell you what it was. This movie is so fucking grainy, which is something we definitely have to talk about.
Oh yeah, we're gonna.
That, like, one of 3 attempts to actually do something scary, you can't tell what it is.
Yeah.
I had it like paused, skipping frame by frame, being like, well, it didn't scare me the first time. Let's see what this is.
Yeah.
I truly don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. The shot on 8mm, then lost it for 30 years thing worked in the sense that it was put on Shudder, so they couldn't. It actually fit within their bandwidth. And I don't say that jokingly. I say that legitimately, because even if there was any black crush, you couldn't tell because the grain was already doing it.
Yeah.
The sound, however, this needed surround sound. It needed a lot of things, as we're discussing, but
a plot.
but if I'm not mistaken, this had a short theatrical run, I believe. Maybe not, full nationwide, but there's a lot of silence, right? And a lot of just hissing from the camera or it's room noise, but then you have the TV on. But there's a scene one small scene in particular, you're looking at, I think it's a chest of drawers, and you're seeing the TV's light reflected on the drawer, but the sound is coming from in front of you. Well, no, it's not. In stereo, it kind of has to. I mean, it should have played like on the far left, maybe. Instead of dead center, they could have done that. But in surround sound, that'd be behind you. So I think you would have had a creepy ambiance in this movie in a surround sound thing. Now, again, it's not going to make it that much of a better movie, but it would help.
Yeah.
Right. It would at least try to help immerse you in what's going on.
Yeah. Now, and that's a shortcoming of Shudder, which horror movies like to be exclusive on or go to or whatever. I get it, but you're doing yourself a major disservice by doing that.
Yeah. The only thing, like the one, I guess, positive or like positive thing I can give this movie is like that static did a good job of giving you the sense of trying to see in the dark. Like if you're walking around your house in the dark and like squinting and trying to see something, like all the shadows kind of shift ever so slightly because like your eyes don't know what to do with it. And at least in the beginning of the movie, when you assumed there was going to be something creeping around and like we'd eventually get there and see it, you're like checking shadows and you're like, did something move over there? Maybe, that was good. But then you quickly realize that no, nothing's going to jump out at me. So like,
the whole counterpoint to that though.
Yeah.
The electricity worked. Why didn't they just turn the lights on?
So I had a
6-year-old can reach a light switch.
What annoys me is they did in the beginning of the movie, and then they stopped doing it, but they never tell the viewer that the lights stopped working for one reason or another.
Right.
Well, yeah, at the beginning, I think Kevin says, I can't sleep with the lights on. So they turned the first night they went to sleep in the living room. He's like, I can't sleep with the lights on. So they turn the lights off, leave the TV on, obviously. And it's like, so this is the first sense that like why are these young children not panicking?
Right.
But
yeah. And then like later they're walking through or just he, I think at this point is walking through the house using a flashlight. Or no, that's at the very end. And clicking it on and off.
Yeah.
And, like, You're investigating a creepy house. Why would you turn your flashlight off? There's no reason for that. You turn that shit on and then you flip the light switches on the wall too. It's scary.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And I think that's the thing too, like, again, going into one of the nightmare theories is the house seems to shift a bit too. Like, what rooms are where and how, like, that couch, they asked to move the couch, but it definitely, like, blocks a hallway at one point, and the rooms all seem askew, and you can't really get a good
And the toilet
layout.
goes missing.
Yeah,
so that's where...
was
dumb, yes, but I was like, okay, if they're doing the doors and the windows to the outside of the house, it's literally any way you could leave the house, including a drain pipe. I mean, no, they don't point out the kitchen sink is missing, but like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I mean, because the whole thing with the grain, it begs the same question too. Why, if you're in an empty house, or at least it's nighttime and there's supposed to be a maximum of 3 people in this house, you should be able to hear everything clearly. I mean, think about, you hear a noise in the middle of the night. You hear it super clearly. You might not know where it came from because you just woke up or whatever, but it's never muffled. You hear it clearly. Why do they have to bake captions in to their own movie because they made the dialogue so quiet or unintelligible? But they want you to know what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like at first... Well, yeah, the first time captions popped up, I was very surprised. And I was like, are they doing that just because, like, you know, like little kids have, like, mush mouth? Like, they're not very, they don't enunciate, but, you know, they're your little chosen actors. Like, have them say a line if they don't say it clearly enough.
Right. It's not like you ever see their mouth.
Right.
You could dub them if you wanted to and still deliver audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, this plays into, like, kids not acting like kids, which does lend itself to, like, these theories of it not actually happening in real time and could be a dream or whatever. But the pauses between the two of them talking to each other.
Yes, I wrote
it's
this
like one of them's like, "Did you hear that?" No. Like, what?
Or sometimes they don't. The other one doesn't respond at all.
Yeah,
and just like, it's so unnatural. And again, I assume intentional, but to what end? Don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down because it was really bothering me.
Like,
well,
no, go ahead.
Okay, so after the basement scene, right? I think that's, Kaylee goes downstairs. We find it's apparently her that loses her eyes and mouth. It's creepy. You don't see or hear from a kid for quite a while after that. So I was like, okay, is anyone alive? Whose perspective are we from? Like, what? Now where are we? Who's left? What's happening? Who was that person? At the time, didn't realize it was Kaylee. Like, they were so consistent in either having them talk or one of them investigating or showing feet. And then it was just like no sign of a child for, I don't know how long it was. I didn't time it, but a significant amount of time and no perspective of anything. And just like, well, now I really don't know what's going on. I don't know who I'm following, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. Why? So many questions. Why?
Why is the prevailing question?
Question we had last week too, but it is very.
Dude, that looks like a crowning achievement compared to this.
I had a much more fun time watching Sky Sharks than I did this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, go back and listen to that review. We didn't love that movie, but it attempted to have a plot. There were things happening on a screen. That's more than you can say about this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I guess the only thing that did escalate in a normal trajectory was like the weirdness of stuff that would happen. Like, it started off with a very poltergeist moment where all of a sudden a chair was on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move on to like all the toys and the Legos on the wall.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird, but okay. But then towards the end of the movie, then we get which I guess was at least a different visual to experience, which was a nice change of pace. But the whole section where we're upside down and presumably Kevin's like walking on the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like a very weird perspective to see. And it's like every doorway, it's like, wait, there's a little lip on the floor that you have to step over to get, like, that's weird. And then it gets really weird where we see like the house in like, you know, weird tunnel at the end. And then we get that shot with all the Legos on the ceiling and just a caption that says 572 days with no explanation.
No explanation. So that's approximately a year and a half. So, because one of my questions before that scene was, what is the time frame we're working with here? So we have there's no daylight, there's no windows, they're gone. There's no doors. The same thing, cartoons are looping on the TV. So that's one of those pieces that feed into the coma theory. Because it's after that point, things actually do get weirder. Because you see the house, you know, the perspective changes. You see the outside of the house. There's that repeated scene of, I guess, I don't know if we're looking at the ceiling or the floor where we are at whatever point, but the massive blood spatter around the corner. That's kind of on a loop. Don't know whose blood it is, why it is, what it is. Maybe mom is not divorced. Maybe some bad shit happened. Because there is a theory based around neglect or abuse from the parents in this movie. So maybe it has to do with that. And then you get, there might have been something in between, but you get to the scene where it has that reddish hue and it's, again, presumably Kaylee sitting on the bed and then just fades away. Right? So thing I read about that is, okay, so he's at the point now his memory is failing him. That's why the voices start getting all rumbly and you hear from Kaylee less and then she's fading away. And it's shortly thereafter he's told to go to sleep. And it keeps asking, who are you? Who are you? And the end. It's like, okay, I guess I should have expected that. But yeah, that 572 days, I just like, come on.
572 days, those kids are dead. They're so dead.
Right. Well, actually, to backtrack, that blood spatter scene, it says mommy on the screen at the end of that. Now, there was a noise. I don't know if the voice was supposed to say mommy, or is that why they don't want to talk about mom? Because mom was killed.
That's what I interpreted that as. But also at the same time, the voice tells Kevin to stab himself in the eye.
Yeah.
So are we seeing that on a loop? That's a lot of blood for an eyeball. I don't know.
After that scene, there was a decent amount of blood spatter shown. There was the one looked like a drip, but then there was like a whole wall.
Yeah, and then you never see Kevin's face, so you don't know if he actually did it or not.
But he calls... Well, he thinks he's calling 911 in theory and says he cut himself and feels sick or whatever. And interestingly, they give you, quote, captions for the 911 side, but you can barely understand Kevin because the camera's in another fucking room for some reason. And you can barely hear him. What I don't understand is if Daddy did kill Mommy, and maybe Daddy didn't, maybe somebody else killed Mommy, because otherwise Daddy wouldn't have the kids. And also, who is he calling? Is he calling his like parole officer to let them know he's not the one that hurt Kevin?
Yeah, like, I mean, he could be calling Grandma. I mean,
well, that's where you need just a little bit more. You got to give the viewer a little bit more. It demands a little bit too much from us to figure out what in the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Because even the neglect abuse angle was, you know, part of that spawned from when they see Mom, it says close your eyes. It's okay, is Daddy abusing Mommy? Is Mommy abusing somebody else? And they don't want Kevin to see it. Like, where is that coming from? Yeah. Again, these are all, I don't know how much I buy into any of these. I'm just trying to throw something at this.
Right. Yeah.
Make something out of it.
Because this had the potential to... Okay, so if this wasn't like some strange art project, which it clearly is, and if they try to make a movie of it, this had the potential of like being the next Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
You know,
like the same thing.
They put up with the silence and the weirdness, but then something fucking happens.
Yeah, this wanted to either be Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch, and it failed at both.
Yeah, I feel like it almost wanted to be both, but was neither. Yeah, because I mean, there's low budget, which Paranormal was, and it, for what it was effective. Same with Blair Witch, whether you were into it or not.
Mm-hmm.
They said, what if we did that, but put the camera on the floor and took away the narrative?
Script.
Yeah, took away the narrative.
Yeah. Like I read some article or little review or something afterwards. Because when I finished, I was like, all right, I gotta read up on this to see if what I'm missing or whatever. And you know, the one thing I read was leaning into the whole like this kind of being just like this artsy like experience or whatever, and you're just supposed to let it envelop you and just that give you that sense of a nightmare as a child and everything. And like, that's why I said at the beginning, like, this is for someone. Some kooky artsy type is gonna enjoy this, but as like marketing it as a movie for general audiences,
no. And like, I don't even know if I would be that generous with it. Like, but I don't know that it is, because it's not nightmarish. It never reaches that level of dread of something happening, something lurking around a corner. It doesn't ever get to a point of being scary enough that you're like, oh, this is like steeping in a child's nightmare. Because like, it would be more abstract than that. It wouldn't just be looking at the ceiling. Like, I don't think as a kid I ever spent any time staring at door jambs and the ceiling, and I can't stress enough how much of this movie is that. It's a solid 25% of the movie, at least. That might even be undercutting it, of just looking up at the wall. I never did that as a kid, and no part of my nightmare would be that. So I don't think it even works at that level to be like, oh, this is an experience for someone. Unless it's just this one very specific writer and director who has a phobia of ceilings and corners. I don't think it's actually for anybody.
Okay.
But I also think...
Obviously, I'm wrong. People fucking like this. But
I also think you need... the majority of viewers need to know that going in. Like, if this is supposed to represent... So, I was reading a few IMDb reviews, particularly the positive ones. And to quote one of them... It says, as these kids are stalked in their house by something unknown and unseen, the horrifying things we see and hear are so clearly indicative of common childhood fears, traumas, and challenges. Divorce, nightmares, abandonment, neglect, death, and the lack of control over your own choices. Now, I can see bits and pieces of that in there, but you can still do all that without so many door jam shots. Like, this movie could have been a good amount shorter and still been a full length, even being generous, could have still been over an hour and done that more effectively. And again, a few tracking shots, a little more noise. It doesn't have to be an audio soundtrack, but a little more ambient noise or something to give you that atmosphere would have gone such a long way. But still shots of a floor with the same scattered toys. And then the same scattered toys. And then we go back and it's like, oh, we're a different area of the same scattered toys. And then like, you know,
I do think you also need to show the kids being scared. Like if you want to convey or have the audience be empathetic with the nightmare these kids are experiencing, they need to be scared. They need to feel like it's a nightmare, not casually strolling through their house, like seeing weird shit and just being totally fucking unaffected by it.
Well, I think he needs to go either that way, or if you really wanted to put the viewer in the nightmare, it needs to be 100% from the perspective of one kid.
Right. Give me even a POV from a kid, or show them being scared. Right.
Even if the other kid, so even if you're 100% from Kevin's view, even if Kaylee wasn't scared, it'd be weird. But again, if you're in a surreal nightmare environment, that's okay. But to be semi following two kids, and neither of them, like, because you're right, we're sitting in that line. It's like, I want to be sympathetic or even empathetic, but I can't. But they're also there distracting me from being fully immersed in this being my nightmare. So like, I'm neither. I'm just frustrated. I'm watching staticky door jams.
Yeah. And another thing we haven't brought up visually, not only is it boring shots and a lot of static, if you do plan on watching this movie, you don't if you're photosensitive. Because holy shit, just me sitting down here with my TV. Granted, it's a big TV for the space I have, but I can't imagine watching this in the theater. It's like being at a Norma Jean show. Like, it's so much flashing, and it's like it got at points it got uncomfortable, and I was like squinting to get. I was like, I'm not going to miss anything, so I might as well squint for a little bit and give my eyes a break. Because damn,
yeah, I don't understand the choice to make it so grainy. Like, it wasn't necessary. It's not like this was shot on super old film. Mm-hmm. It was their digital grain that was added in afterwards. So, like, why?
Yeah, because it said at the beginning of the movie, what, it was 95?
95. Yeah, I read an interview with the director, and he's like, yeah, sometimes you just really, it's hard to fake it. So I bought like 40 really good sample packs of digital grain to use at different points and different hues and different whatever else throughout the movie. Like, okay, cool. So you did that, but why? Why did you want to make it hard to look at? Because you did. You really did.
Yeah.
And like, if you pay attention, you can see the repeat on the grain.
Oh yeah.
A fair amount of times. And it's extremely distracting.
Yep.
Like,
I was actually watching for that at one point.
Yeah, it was something to watch. I was watching for it too. It's the most fucking interesting part of this movie.
And again, some might argue it's to feed the nightmare element, say with the weird voices.
I don't dream that way.
I don't agree. I don't agree with it either, but because it can make you uneasy or something. I'm not arguing for it, but at the same time, if you actually shot it, say went the opposite direction and shot it in clear 4K, you now have high dynamic range to work with. You now have wider color gamuts. You could pull off most of what you did. And if the face at the end that appears in the grain of the camera, essentially, have it come out of mid fucking air and be wavy. Like, have it come, have wallpaper there and it like morphs from the color there. Like, sure, it's a special effect, whatever. Like, would have the same effect. Yep. The darkness, the light, it would still all work. There's no reason to make it harder to see. The doorway, in the bedroom where something might come in and you fast forwarded back and forth 6 times. You could have pulled off a similar stunt without grain. Sure, that was a different effect. They'd be 2 different things, but you could do a similar gag.
Or, counterpoint, film it with a Super 8. It's not like there were any tracking shots. There were very little special effects. There's no reason you couldn't have filmed this. If you wanted that grainy old filmed look, do that. And then that becomes a lot more forgivable for why some shit looks weird or looks bad, because there were limitations to the technology that you used to do it and it achieved the aesthetic you wanted, versus like, oh, I want to look like a piece of shit filmed on a Super 8 in 1995. Let me film it with a good camera and then intentionally make it look bad.
They pulled a Saint Anger.
Yeah. Yeah, they had all the tools. They just didn't use them.
Yeah, they wanted to sound old school, but instead of doing it the old way, they fucked up the good way of doing it. And this is exactly what they did in this movie. Mm-hmm. To the same effect. No one's going to go back to this. And they're going to want to forget it from their set.
This is for fans of Death Heaven's first album. That's my takeaway from this movie.
Double shot. Not much. Nice.
Yeah.
For anyone who's lost, I'm lost too.
Yep. Okay. It's a shoegazy metal band that for some reason all the emo hipster cool kids loved, and I could not understand why, because nothing happens.
Go find Nick and Maya's old podcast, the Sideshow Podcast, and I'm sure we talk about that at length at various points.
It'd be a good soundtrack for this. It's a whole bunch of not much.
All right. Well, let's move on to
let's skip the next section.
The merit badge section. Normally, we hand out merit badges for things we thought a film did well, but clearly we're all coming to the same consensus that we're not going to be handing out any badges. So, you know what that means. Yep. It only took 3 episodes back from our hiatus into our new wave of this show to land on a sad kangaroo.
We've done it.
Damn. It's Canadian. Should get like a sad moose.
Good point.
Okay, but would you rather rewatch this or Charlie's Farm?
Charlie's Farm.
Charlie's Farm.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I just had to throw that out there.
It's funny, like the movie that I voted as the worst up until now was Pod, and I would watch Pod over this.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah. I'm so glad I knew that this was going to be like experimental artsy going in, because like I'm proud of myself for how long I lasted before I got fed up. But
I wrote as one of my notes that had we not been reviewing this, I would have turned this off and not finished the movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if I would have made it to the halfway point when I actually checked how far I was, but
no, I think I probably would have made it about 15 minutes before I was like, oh wait, shit, nothing is happening. This is the direction of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't need this.
Yep.
Yeah, this might be, not hyperbolically, the worst movie I've ever sat through.
Well, sorry, listeners. We've got 2 duds in a row, but
sorry for them. Sorry for us.
Yeah.
We saved their asses.
Dude, Sky Sharks just looks so much better now.
Yeah, man.
Just look back at that and be like, damn, we had it good.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep in mind, for those who, like me, use IMDb to help them guide, this holds a 5.1. Sky Sharks, I believe, had a 3.4, 3.6, one of those.
So that should tell you don't believe reviews.
Right. You got to use it within a context of your own judgment and maybe read a couple things. Don't take them, at face value.
Yeah.
Or listen to very astute scholarly individuals tell you what they think of something.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time we'll just watch our 3 favorite horror movies or something to make up for this past month. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing yet, but we'll try and be a little more, do a little bit more research before we dive into something.
Just find a straight up campy slasher. It's got to be better.
Yeah.
I feel like we're due for one.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our review of Skinamarink. Yeah. Sorry.
That happened.
That happened. That's a new badge. That happened. Badge. Not much happened, but that happened. So anyway, thanks for everyone who's listening or watching. Appreciate it. For those of you watching on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment if you saw this film, and we'd love to hear what you thought about it. Be it agree with us or tell us we're not at the level of sophistication needed to understand this, or I don't know. It's not going to happen anyway. And if you listen to us, the audio version on a podcast service, we always appreciate a rating or a review on whatever service you use. So that's going to do it. If you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, I need to change that in my notes. I wrote Twitch for some reason, but we're not on Twitch. We're on Twitter. We're at horror_scouts. We've got a Discord channel that we briefly mentioned earlier. There is a link in the description. So come on over there, join us for a little convo about anything horror related. Really, we're ready to talk about it. We got a great trailer thread in there, and every time we find a trailer we post it on up. I posted 2 today. So yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. I don't know whose idea it was to watch this. If it was mine, I'm sorry, but thank you for being here anyway. And
of course,
we'll catch everybody next time. Bye.